Today, I'd like to talk in more depth about ancient desert civilizations, societies that developed in extremely harsh conditions and later vanished beneath layers of shifting sand. Although these communities once thrived across vast regions of North Africa and the Middle East, we know surprisingly little about them because they never developed a formal writing system. Instead, stories and traditions were transmitted orally, which means very few records survived. As a result, almost everything we understand today comes from the careful study of buried objects, tools, and architectural remains. These discoveries allow us to reconstruct the daily activities that shape the lives of people living in such unforgiving landscapes. Now, early explorations of desert sites were slow and often inaccurate. Archaeologists were forced to dig blindly, usually damaging fragile artifacts in the process. But the last 2 decades have completely transformed the field. Modern experts now rely on sophisticated scanning technologies, such as multispectral imaging, satellite mapping, and ground-penetrating radar, to locate ancient structures without disturbing the surface. These tools can detect subtle differences in soil density and moisture, making it possible to identify entire settlements that were previously invisible to the naked eye. However, uncovering these sites is only the first challenge. The desert environment is extremely unpredictable. One of the most destructive natural forces researchers must deal with is the violent sandstorms that sweep across the region several times a year. These storms can bury newly exposed artifacts within minutes, scatter delicate pottery fragments over long distances, and erode wooden structures that have survived for thousands of years. Because of this, archaeologists must work during very narrow windows of time when conditions are stable, and even then, preservation is difficult. Despite these challenges, the discoveries have been remarkable. Many of the most significant findings have been curated and displayed in a large educational gallery established near one of the main excavation sites. This gallery features life-size models of desert dwellings, replicas of clothing, and interactive maps showing historical trade routes. The goal is not only to showcase the objects themselves but also to help visitors imagine what daily life might have been like for the people who lived in these ancient communities. Still, it's important to remember that the scale of excavation carried out each year remains extremely limited. The remote locations, high temperatures, and fragile conditions mean that only small areas can be uncovered and studied at a time. Funding is another major barrier, as transporting equipment and specialists into the desert is considerably more expensive than working at urban archaeological sites. Let's look at some specific findings to illustrate the diversity of discoveries made so far. In one particularly well-preserved settlement, researchers uncovered evidence that inhabitants had constructed a fortified barrier to defend themselves from rival tribes. This barrier was built using a combination of mud brick and stone, reinforced with wooden beams. Surprisingly, structural analysis suggests it was strong enough to withstand not only enemy attacks but also the strong winds typical of the region. Another remarkable find was a clay tablet thought to be more than 3,000 years old. Although it did not contain writing as we know it, the tablet displayed carved symbols and markings that scholars believe represent a simplified map of the surrounding desert. This map indicates several key water sources and safe paths, suggesting it was used to guide merchants along established trade routes. Trade appears to have played an essential role in the development of these civilizations. Excavations of caravan sites have uncovered large quantities of spices sealed in ceramic containers. These would have been extremely valuable in neighboring kingdoms and were likely the primary motivation behind the long and dangerous desert journeys undertaken by ancient merchants. In addition to trade goods, archaeologists have found a surprising number of luxury items. These include finely crafted jewelry made from precious stones, as well as old coins, some of which originated from distant empires. Such items provide strong evidence that these desert communities maintained economic and cultural connections with far more advanced civilizations. Altogether, the study of ancient desert societies reveals a complex and interconnected world that was far more sophisticated than previously imagined. And thanks to modern technology, we are finally beginning to uncover stories that remained hidden beneath the sand for thousands of years.